thank you for being a part of this. I'm sure Ethan and Liz really enjoy having every one of you here. And then, of course, we have to thank Ethan and Liz. Obviously, we wouldn't be here without them. So, I guess I've been thinking about this speech for like a really, really long time. And then I finally decided to put it together this morning. I actually had a dream 2 nights ago that I wrote this speech, and I woke up and I thought for sure I was going to roll over to like things jotted down on a piece of paper or pen like next to me, but there was nothing when I woke up. But anyway, it was also pretty difficult because I had to think of stories where Ethan and I weren't like fighting as kids. But I mean, when we were kids, like it just seemed like that was every other day. I'm sure my parents got plenty of calls when, you know, over the summer we're fighting, one of us cries or one of us complains, and mom or dad gets a call. But yeah, thank mom and dad as well for everything. So, thinking of a story where we aren't fighting, I go back to a good family friend from our church that we knew forever, the McCommons family. All right, and I'm thinking of things where Ethan and I are like working together. And so this family, they had 2 sons that were in high school, while Ethan and I are probably 8 or 10 years old, and we would have done anything for these guys. We thought they were so cool. We looked up to them unbelievably. And so they were getting ready to move from Pennsylvania, from Waynesburg, down to Virginia. And they said, you know, if you still want to be friends with us, you have to go through this obstacle course. And we're like, yeah, absolutely, anything you want us to do. So it starts off like, okay, you have to run 5 times around the outside of our house in 2 minutes, or else we can't be friends. So Ethan and I take off sprinting. No problem. Done in a minute. Okay, you have to jump off this porch over to the 4-foot flower bed, and if you touch those flowers, we can't be friends. Well, we did that, no problem. So then it comes to the final thing, and the last thing we have to do, we go inside the house, and Casey McCommons, who is probably a junior in high school at the time, picks out 2 pickle jars out of the refrigerator. He says, if you really want to be friends while we move to Virginia, both of you have to chug this bottle of pickle juice. So sure enough, me and Ethan just take this bottle of pickle juice, chug it like there was nothing else. So I was gonna like tie that into like being loyal to friends and being good friends, but really it's just like stupidity. But those were some good memories, like as kids. Then moving on, those of you that were at the rehearsal dinner last night, I'm sorry, this would probably be a duplicate story, but my dad stole my story that I was going to tell. But anyway, Ethan, when I was a junior at Pitt, and Ethan was going into a senior year in high school, and he was trying to make this decision: do I go to college to wrestle, or do I go to college to play soccer? And he's making his decision during soccer season. And Ethan, I don't know how many of you like know how much this kid likes to eat, but it's during soccer season, so he's like, well, forget this. I'm not wrestling. I'm just going to keep eating and get as big as I possibly can and play soccer. Well, thankfully, he did decide to wrestle. He came to Pitt. I was very fortunate to get to be on the same team as him, but then, on the other hand, he also met Liz. He probably wouldn't have been here or been at Pitt if it wasn't for wrestling. So, glad he finally made that decision. And then I met Liz. I was graduated by the time I actually met Liz, but I was living in North Carolina, so I guess I was back time and time again. Got to meet Liz. We were around each other some, but it was just short pieces here and there. And then I was fortunate enough that I got to come back to Pitt last year, and Liz opened up their house to me, and I got to move in with them for some time before I found my final house, which just so happens to be right down the street. But in that time, I really saw these two connected to each other, and at this time they were almost engaged. What was it, like maybe a month before it actually happened? But we got to spend a lot of time together, whether it was just in the living room at night or out at the fire pit. We got to spend a lot of time together, and I guess I hung out with girls, but it wasn't like I hung out with a girl that could be my sister one day, sister-in-law. But anyway, we got to hang out a lot. Now, I'm glad that I live right down the street now, and we get to spend a lot of time together. So whether it's at pit football games, grabbing some dogs at D's, or out at the fire pit behind the house, I'm glad to have Liz in the family, and we couldn't be happier to have her family to be part of ours. So, on that note, Mark touched on this today, but I read a thing the other day that said a marriage consists of two things: a good sense of humor and a short memory. So hopefully you think that about this speech that I just gave as well. And we will